Moving on, something else here. Well, sexual assault, high school athletes, and social media, that toxic mix galvanized media interest in the Steubenville rape case that we spoke about last week. Now, a similar case in Torrington, Connecticut is raising the issue of when it's appropriate to identify minors who've misbehaved. Last month, authorities in Torrington, Connecticut arrested 2 high school football players for having sex with 2 13-year-old girls. The victims say it was consensual, but Edgar Gonzalez and Joan Toribio are both 18, and the state considers that statutory rape.
The scandal involving allegations of sexual assault and bullying at Torrington High School is getting bigger.
Then, according to the Torrington Register-Citizen, other students harassed the 13-year-olds.
One 13-year-old alleged victim is getting cyberbullied for coming forward.
The Register-Citizen published the taunts. Young girls acting like whores, wrote one. You destroyed 2 people's lives, wrote another. And the paper included the full identity of the online bullies, even though they are minors. The paper defended the decision, saying that protecting identities would have allowed the school district to continue to ignore the problem and the community to assume that it was someone else's kid. That reasoning has had repercussions.
The hacker group known as Anonymous is focusing on the case of 2 Torrington High School students.
Reports now say that the group Anonymous is harassing the bullying teens identified by the Register-Citizen. I'm sure that's no minor issue for them. Well, there's a couple issues here, but one for me is this naming minors when they're accused of misdemeanors. I can remember after 9/11, very shortly after, there was a bomb scare at Newton North High School. Evacuated the school. It was horrible. And they picked the kid up, and it was a 16-year-old that I was dying to know who that 16-year-old was. And had I found out who that was, I would have used his name. That, to me, who is it? It's not somebody else's kid, like, all the parents, oh, it's somebody else. But this case is a little more sensitive to me because it involves the issue of rape and statutory rape and who is complicit in it, and it's not really like Steubenville, which was, that was an out-and-out rape, unlike this, which was, even though it can't be consensual, it was said to be consensual, but I have a little bit more difficulty using the names of the people who taunted them, although I might have.
This is a hard call. I know the editor who made this decision, Matt Dorenzo. He's the editor of a number of papers in Connecticut, including this one. And I know that he's a thoughtful guy. He put a lot of thought into this. There was some internal discussion in the newsroom. I think he made the right call. And the case that I think he makes that's most compelling is these tweets had already been published. These were out in public. These kids had posted this stuff to Twitter. Obviously, the Register-Citizen was making it a lot easier for people to find this stuff, but they had already outed themselves. And I think that there was enough of importance here to getting their identities out that I support what they did.
Me too. I'm with you.
I feel the same.
I'm with you on this one. The victim here, 13-year-old girl, being mercilessly taunted and harassed and bullied, whatever you want to call it, with these tweets. And this online harassing is becoming such a big thing with teenage kids, with unrelated events. So we tell our kids all the time, don't put anything online that you wouldn't want your grandmother to see. Well, they went ahead and put this stuff online. It was vicious in some cases, and it's public, as you just said. So I don't have a problem with it. I know they're underage, but you know what? Obviously a lot of the high school bullying that's going on is going on.
It wasn't criminal, though. Does that matter to you? It wasn't criminal.
No, it doesn't matter to me because it was part of the story, the bullying of this 13-year-old girl, and they put this in a public way. I mean, there's a different standard if you're accused of a crime when you're a juvenile, but this was just public attacks on this kid.
Yeah, and even though if there's a crime, there's a process after that.
Yes.
There's a reason to not want to prejudice jurors or people who are going to be judges who are going to be evaluating that, and I understand that. In this case, there's no doubt about what they did. They did it. They put this in public. I agree with you that it's a tough call, but I think it is the right call in the end. I think that if you're going to be looking at the issue of this sort of bullying that goes on, it goes on in public. That's one of the defining characteristics of it. One of the ways in which it's different from pushing a kid in the hall. Like, this is being performed in front of a group of people online in public. And I think it is a totally reasonable decision to say, we're going to point this out, we're going to highlight this, and let our community know what's going on at our school.
I confess I was all over the place on this one. And because I went to the next level and said, what happens if it's a different scenario, not this one? But of course, we're talking about this one, so that's where we should land. And so to that point, then for people to understand what was being said, and to everybody else's point here that it was public, really has to weigh more heavily for me. So I think that he made a thoughtful and nuanced discussion. However, I did think, was it possible for them to put it on and not put their names? You could have put the tweets on and, you know, redacted their names, so to speak. Mm-hmm. I really take all of your points that it was already out there publicly, and that has, and to your point, you know, Marjorie, about these kids not understanding, you put it out there, it's out there, and it's public. So I was really wrestling with this because they are 13. On the other hand, it's this kind of scenario, and I've spoken a lot about the power of the witnesses in a bully situation. These are witnesses in a bully situation, and they gain strength and power from the actual bully, the rapist in this case. And so for them to be allowed to get away with that, I mean, their crime is equal.
Yeah.
It's too much for me. You know?
Then that group Anonymous then started bullying the bulliers. It's like, wow.
Right.
You know, it's just
so then that's what made me think, well, could you have had the same effect? Because the paper could say, we're not talking about sweet innocence here. Look what they said, and not put their names on. You could have gone there.
But that wouldn't have been, like, Anonymous would have been able to search and find those people. It would have had a big impact there. But yeah, I take your point.
So I just sort of wrestle with that. Yeah.